Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host, and we don't have time to play today because Danny Kanell, the former Florida State quarterback, the former NFL quarterback, the current CBS Sports broadcaster, is joining us to talk a little football. And we had some football action last night on Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings from out of nowhere scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, knock off the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams looks like a terrific superstar in the first half. Looks like garbage, hot garbage in the second half. Let's get right to it. Let's bring in Danny Kanell. We don't want to waste a bunch of time. We got Danny. We might as well take advantage of Danny. Danny, I want to start by talking about last night's Monday Night Football game and Caleb Williams. And I want to show you a picture that Le'Veon Bell tweeted out that, he knew an L was coming as soon as he saw Caleb Williams dressed like this. Let's see. And Danny, what's crazy about this, the same thought struck my mind at the very beginning of the game when I saw him walk out with that T-shirt underneath the jersey. I was like, man, Danny, you ever watched the show The Wire? Did you ever watch that?
Oh, yeah.
Prop Joe?
Yeah, all-timer.
Yeah, remember when Prop Joe told Avon Barksdale, dress the part, be the part, mother, when he was a basketball coach. That's what I was thinking about Caleb Williams. Your thoughts on Caleb Williams, and is Le'Veon Bell correct that, something about his appearance is off-putting and not leadership worthy?
I mean, this kind of goes along the lines of a Colin Cowherd with the hat backwards take, right? And you can criticize it, but how many of them have won Super Bowl championships? There's something about being the leader of the franchise where you just can't be like everybody else. And I'll put another one for you. This bothered me. I think it was after his first touchdown when he ran it in, like he had what looked like a pre-planned celebration where I kind of stood up and did a little Superman like pose. And I'm not a fan of that either from your quarterback. I just think you've got to carry yourself differently. And there's something missing with Caleb Williams. So the tape when he was in college was off the charts, but there were a couple things that were missing. One, winning. Like that to me should be something that should be a requirement. And when you're barely a 500 team in college at USC with all that talent around you, it should be a little bit concerning. And then just all the off the field stuff, the nail polish, him crying in his mom's arms. But I would say even more importantly, just the body language on the field. Like you need to be an alpha and you need to have somebody that those guys want to run through a wall for. And if you watch the difference in the halves play out, we saw Caleb Williams as a front runner look great. And sure, there was a lot of enthusiasm. But on the other side, you saw J.J. McCarthy, who's making his first start. What's the difference in him? He wins a national championship. He's won at every level he's been in. He doesn't even put up great stats in college because all he cared about was winning. And then watch his body language throughout the game. The celebration, spontaneous. He's going over to his teammates. Watch the way they rallied around him and the way they celebrated him with him after. I thought you could almost see the juxtaposition of those two leadership styles on display. And I think we saw the results of one that works and one that can work. But I think I'm not a big believer in guys that are too worried about stuff off the field when it really has to be about just winning.
The quarterback position is very similar mentally, and you'd have to play a lot of golf to get the analogy. But playing golf at the highest level, it's walking a tightrope for 4 days. Each shot is connected and mentally to recover from a bad shot to a good shot. It's a roller coaster. And I look at Caleb Williams with everything he's got going on. He wants to dress different. He wants to be different. He wants to paint his fingernails and speak out against suicide prevention. There's too many things going on other than just like laser focus. I want to be the dominant quarterback. I want to be a franchise quarterback. I want to be the best quarterback I can be. And that's how you go from, in the first half, I promise you, it took all the discipline that I had not to tweet out, holy cow, Caleb Williams is amazing. I wouldn't do it because I wanted to see the whole game because I knew, like, can he really walk this tightrope? I just think he's got too much off the field, just too much going on to handle being a franchise quarterback.
Especially at this point in his career. Like, I get it later. If you're established and you've got multiple Super Bowls, or even if you have one Super Bowl or an MVP, there's an opportunity for you to do that down the road. But when you're a rookie or a second-year quarterback, that's when I think you should be laser focused on honing your craft, becoming the best quarterback you can be, because it really is a process. Like, I don't think people understand how complicated an NFL playbook is, and both from the offense and the defensive standpoints. And he was set back having to learn a new system. Like, you really just have to bury yourself in the playbook and in the mental aspect, and also building relationships on your team. Like, you've got to build that camaraderie with your teammates through an entire offseason. So I wonder if he lacks something. I'll give you a story. So this is a pretty good one on a leadership perspective, or sort of where you've been. So I was still in the NFL at the time, and I got a call from a friend of mine at the NFL office, and she said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" It was like a commercial shoot, and it was for an opportunity to make a little bit of money. And I was like, sure. I was like, absolutely. And she's like, yeah. She's like, Tom Brady turned it down. And this was after Tom Brady had won one Super Bowl. And I said, well, this is great for me. I was a backup. And I'm like, I'll fly and do whatever you want to do. And she told me, she said, Brady didn't want to do it because he didn't think he was worthy of it yet, like becoming a brand or somebody that should get recognized yet. And here I am. I'm like in my 8th or 9th year. I'm just looking for extra scratch, like anything I can do. I probably didn't have anywhere belonging in that place, but I had a friend in the NFL office I knew from the Giants. So she's like, sure, we need somebody to fill it last minute. But I thought it would kind of put things in perspective that Brady, even with one Super Bowl under his belt, still didn't really feel like he belonged, and still wanted to prioritize, let me build up my resume, let me build up my stature as a player before I take a lot of these endorsements and outside opportunities. I think that's the type of focus and like awareness of the opportunity at hand when you're as talented as a player like Caleb Williams that has to be out there for every franchise quarterback.
It's, and I don't want to sidetrack the conversation by bringing this name into it, but I'm going to do it, take the risk. I look at Shedeur Sanders, I look at Caleb Williams, and I don't see young quarterbacks making an effort to quiet the noise around them, limit the conversation about them, make people just talk purely football. That's the mistake that I think Caleb Williams makes. That's the mistake I think Shedeur makes. I'll go Colin Cowherd with you. Hat on backwards, sunglasses.
Sideways backwards. Look, it wasn't even backwards.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm just like,
shades on.
What are you doing? You're the third string. You're the emergency quarterback. You should try to be invisible, that no one can see you. There's nothing to talk about you. That's what you do early in your career.
And that's the way you gain the respect of your teammates, too. Because really, no one cares about your college career. They don't care where you were drafted. They care how you are as a teammate, as a professional. And the more humble you are, and the more you just go to work, the more respect you'll earn over time. And there's really only way to earn that respect. It's on the field to play. But when you can't play, when you're a backup, and specifically a quarterback, just put your nose to the ground and just go to work. I still look back and look at opportunities that I had, that even me as a backup quarterback with the Denver Broncos, I did a weekly radio gig. This is when I was, this is my 7th last year in the league. And I even look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Now I know what I was thinking. I was thinking I want a career in media. So I want to go out and try to parlay and get some experience and get some reps. But even looking back, and I had played, I already been a starter, and I was a veteran backup in the league. But I look back and I'm talking about our starter, and I'm talking about other players and criticizing them when I probably should have been shutting my mouth at the time. Like, I wasn't a starter. I didn't really have that opportunity to be that type of, voice at that point in my career. So I just, and that's from personal experience, like looking at something that I made a mistake that I'm not very proud of, but I think you learn and you grow. And that's why I feel like I've got wisdom to offer to younger quarterbacks and say, maybe there's some things you need to pass up on to keep the bigger goal in mind and the way the teams, and most importantly, your teammates look at you.
All right, so it sounds like you're buying J.J. McCarthy. I'm more skeptical. And
I am too.
That's probably because I'm more
not
casual. Oh.
Yeah. I'm more skeptical too. I backed the Bears last night. There was a trend that we saw in college, and I thought it would carry over because you had somebody who had started an entire year in Caleb Williams. It was J.J. McCarthy's first road start coming out. I think we way overdraft quarterbacks. Like, I didn't think he should have been drafted where he was. I probably would have had him a late first rounder. And I thought some of the stuff that he did at Michigan was a little bit corny. Like, some of the stuff, I think there's a rah aspect, and then there's that alpha. Like, there's a very fine line that you walk. And so I thought it would be more of a struggle. Also, when he was at Michigan, he didn't put up great numbers, and he wasn't asked to put the team on his back. Like, he had a great run game, great defense, and he was never really asked to go out there and say, all right, you're down 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. We need you to go put us on your back, throw us down the field. He always sort of had advantageous situations. Now, in third downs, he came up big, and he was big situationally, but never on a scale of an entire game saying, we are not the better team. You're going to have to go out and win that game. And I thought that's the challenge he was facing last night, and he responded big in that second half. But I think it's going to be more of a bumpy ride for him. And I do think Kevin O'Connell deserves credit for being one of those quarterback whisperer coaches that instills a confidence and a belief in a player, whether it's a guy making his first start or a retread like Sam Darnold, to really maximize those quarterbacks' abilities. But I do think it'll be more of a bumpy ride for J.J. McCarthy. Like, I'm not willing to go out there and say, all right, there's your rookie of the year just yet. I want to see it over a course of the whole season.
Tua Tagovailoa, I think he's a shot fighter. I think he's taken too many hits. It's over. It's done. The Dolphins wasted $167 million. Your thoughts?
I love Tua. I think he's a great dude off the field. But how do you design a game plan when you're terrified of your quarterback getting hit in the head? Like, I don't know how. It's still a physical sport, right? It's still tackle football. And some of the hits that he's taken, I mean, weren't even that bad. But he's at a point in his career now where he's taken so many, you wonder if the next one could be your last. I still think he could put up big numbers. I think there's a fracture in that locker room. Like, I was down there the last 2 seasons. I've done some training camp reporting for them for Sirius XM. And 2 years ago, there was this kind of rekindled confidence. Even though they lost in the playoffs to Kansas City, they were talking about embracing it, and they were going to show people they were this tougher team that could win in the cold weather, and they were going to silence all their critics. And then last season kind of falls apart. Tua gets hurt again. And then at the end of the season, Tyreek says, get me out of here. And he's pretty public about it, and it plays out not so great. Mike McDaniel takes criticism. Maybe he's a little too player friendly, which I agree with. I think he is too player friendly. I think you can't be, it's like parenting. As a parent, you can't be your kid's best friend. You have to be the parent. And as a coach, you can't be the player's friend. You have to be their coach. And I think that line has been blurred somewhat. And so when I went back down there this year, I asked Tua about Tyreek, and it was a very lukewarm answer. He's like, no, there's damage that's been done. It needs to be repaired. Mike McDaniel he's got sort of this philosophical approach that's very kind of new agey when he talks about the sport. And he talked for about 3 minutes straight, and I still didn't really get an answer of how this team was going to be tougher. So I think you're starting to see the beginning of the Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer era. And in hand, it might mean the end for Tua, because as a new coach want to inherit a quarterback who's sure he may be gifted, but again, you have to game plan specifically around his head injury. I think that could get ugly in Miami as we're moving forward.
Yeah, I don't. He's no threat to run anymore, and he was inaccurate against the Colts. I'm done with Tua, and I like a great kid, everything he stands for, love him. How you made an interesting point though about he and Tyreek Hill's relationship. Help me and us understand. Like, I just sit there and go, okay, Tyreek said something stupid. He's a diva wide receiver. Receivers say stupid things, but he's still the fastest guy on the field. Let me just throw him the football. What level of trust do I need to have? The guy runs by, everybody's wide open. Just, I could care less whether he's a good guy or not. He makes me look good. I'm just going to throw him the football. What deeper level of relationship do they need than that?
So I think there's got to be a trust there that you can't base your relationship on the results. And I think that's what it's been for Tyreek and Tua. It's been a little bit results based as opposed to that true teammate. Like, I've got your back no matter what. Like, that's where the best teams are made of, where if the quarterback throws 3 picks, the defense comes out and says it was our fault. Like, like they cover for each other. You don't let a teammate take a stray. And even worse, you don't provide the strays for the media, which Tyreek did at the end of last year. And there have been other comments throughout that Tyreek has kind of hinted at to his arm strength. There's been other things that have been covered. And it always has just felt, and Tyreek's a knucklehead, right? Like, he's not exactly a consummate professional when he's going out there and he's getting arrested before the game. And, he's just kind of off the rails, off the field. As a quarterback, you want somebody who's reliable and somebody who's trustworthy. And I think that trust has been broken between Tua and Tyreek. But to your point, if I'm Tua, I would have been doing therapy sessions with him, like whatever you can do to build that trust up. And you maybe overlook some of these failings off the field or things that he said. But I think Tua is somebody who also mentally is somebody they really had to do a lot of work with, because when Todd Bowles was there, he didn't build Tua up, and Tua was sort of a fractured quarterback. And that was why Mike McDaniel came in there, to build up his confidence.
Brian Flores.
You said
Brian
Todd
Flores,
Bowles.
yes. Todd
Bowles,
Flores,
totally different coach. Yes. Brian Flores was tearing him apart in front of the team. And that was something that even Tua had talked about, how much damage it did to him. And players in the locker room were blown away by the way he was treated by his head coach. And so that's somebody who I wonder if there's been trust issues before with his head coach, and now he doesn't really trust his best wide receiver. It just feels broken. There's just something broken in that locker room that just feels off. I think there's a culture issue, and I think there's a quarterback issue with his best wide receiver.
All right, let's move to college football. I want to play you a clip of Steve Sarkisian getting asked about Arch Manning's shoulder. He seemed to be grimacing during the game. Let's play SOT number 1.
Arch Manning seemed to be having some throwing pains by the
According to
fourth quarter.
who?
Arch?
Arch said that to you?
No.
Oh, according to who?
It just looked like he was.
He doesn't have any.
Is there an explanation to why it looked like that?
I don't know. I've never filmed any of you guys when you're using the bathroom, so I don't know what faces you make when you're doing that.
Sark, you talk.
Danny, I do think when I watched Arch Manning this past weekend, I was not impressed with his arm strength. I'm not someone that's ready to jump on the bandwagon after he clowned San Jose State. Your thoughts, is Arch Manning healthy? What do you think about the way Sarkisian handled that question?
Jason, I would have felt better if he would have said he was dealing with something, because I'm with you. But I even go back to the Ohio State game. I thought he looked like he was laboring a little bit on the bigger throws, like throwing the ball downfield. It just looks like it takes more effort than it does. Like, my favorite quarterbacks to watch are guys that it looks effortless. And, they're still straining, but you can't really tell. Now, granted, I think Peyton and Eli were guys that didn't just throw it effortlessly. I think they required a lot of effort. And Peyton didn't throw a great ball. I remember him taking heat for some of his balls wobbling a little bit. Like, so who cares what you look like, your facial expression? I'll believe Sark and say there's not a shoulder issue that's there. And the stat line from San Jose State game was one of the more misleading stats that was out there. In about a 5-minute span, he had 4 touchdowns. The other 50 minutes that he was in the game, it did not look great. But here's the thing. I wasn't a big buyer into the Arch Manning as this unbelievable gifted talent. I thought, sure, he's a 5-star, but we see 5-stars all the time that struggle out of the gate or that end up at a different school. In Arch's class alone, there were 5 5-star quarterbacks. Arch is the only one at the same school. The other 4, Jackson Arnold was in his class. He already moved on from Oklahoma to Auburn. Like, Nico from Tennessee already moved on to UCLA. So just because they're a 5-star doesn't mean they're going to be this lock like this certain home run. But I still think he can work. I just thought this year was going to be more of a learning curve for him. He played at a very small high school, much like I did. He went to a tiny high school. I think it's going to take some time for him to get used to the speed and athleticism of playing against bigger, faster, stronger players. And I think it's just going to be a bumpy ride for him. I think he'll work out in year 2. But I think that learning process is going to be painful because of the scrutiny. Like, there's no other quarterback in the country that we're watching back videos of a grimace. Because it's Arch, we're breaking this down and talking about it. So he's got to deal with that type of scrutiny and the criticism that he's taken since that Ohio State loss. I think he'll be fine, but I kind of expect it to be a bumpy ride for Arch this year.
And I think we have to get comfortable with, let's remove his last name and things working out in year 2, and maybe he sticks around in even another year. He may just be a good college quarterback. He may not be a first-round NFL draft pick, or maybe not even an NFL player, but if he has success and is a starter at Texas for 2 or 3 years, Danny, I'm old enough to remember when that used to be a hell of a career.
Yeah, no doubt. It used to be an unbelievable career. I'll be curious to see how it unfolds with him. I still think from an NFL perspective, he's still going to show up on all the draft boards. I always thought all along he was going to stay 2 years at Texas. I didn't think he was going to come out after 1. He's got the luxury. I mean, he's probably going to make close to $10 million in the off. I mean, did you see the amount of commercials that he had during that game with major brands? They're not doing those cheap. That's a Manning. So I think he's got the luxury of not having to go pro to get the big money. So I think he'll be back for another year. And I think he'll measure all right. Like, he's tall. He's going to run fast. I think the arm strength is the one thing that I'm keeping an eye on, is that top tier arm strength there that is worthy of, all right, this is a number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. I've got to see it a little bit more on bigger stages versus better competition before I'm willing to sign off on Arch just being the automatic number 1 overall draft pick.
All right, so I saw your tweet. You're super high on South Florida based on results. You'd have them number 1. They beat Boise State. They upset Florida. They play Miami coming up. Is there real talent here at South Florida, or is your respect for them just totally off the results?
Both. I mean, I think it's both, because I'm a big believer, and I don't like power rankings where you go to the Vegas odds. I don't like when you go with who you think are the best teams, because we've been wrong throughout the course of history. So I really try to honor, especially early in the season, what teams have done on the field. Like, I can't stand that Penn State pays 3 cupcakes. Georgia, they finally get a test this weekend. They played 2 cupcakes. So I don't even put them in my rankings until they play a team. And nobody in the country has better wins than South Florida. Like, they handled Boise State, who was everyone's pick from the group of 5 to be back in the playoffs. And they beat them 34-7, like, physically dominate them. Then the thing that was probably most impressive to me, yes, I think Florida is a dumpster fire, and Billy Napier's clock mismanagement was probably going to cost him his job. DJ Lagway didn't look like the better quarterback on the field, which was pretty alarming. But I liked Byron Brown, the quarterback for USF, for a while now. 2 years ago, when he was healthy, he was putting up numbers and putting that team on his back. And then last year, he missed most of the season, so people kind of forgot about USF. They've got a pretty nasty defense. They've got talent. But I still think the odds makers look at this as a talent mismatch similar to what they saw against Florida. It's almost exactly the same point spread. They were 17-point underdog in Gainesville. They're a 17-point dog in Miami. And the only thing you can do if you're Alex Golesh, the head coach for USF, say, we got to go prove them wrong again. And if they do, if they're able to win those 3 games, first of all, it'd be the toughest 3 games that anybody in this country has played, to start off with Boise, Florida, and Miami. And if they do, I guarantee you they'll be in the top 5. I would have them back in my number 1, and then they would almost be a lock to make the playoffs from the group of 5 once they get to their American schedule. But I think the best thing that happened to Mario Cristobal was what just happened in Gainesville. Because, I mean, Florida they have an LSU game next. They might have been looking ahead just a bit. I think they were kind of surprised by the physicality up front. I think Miami will be up to the challenge. I think they'll be able to, and I think Carson Beck has clearly played better as a quarterback with more experience at Miami. So I think Miami will take care of business, but it is an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Not that I have any interest in this, but I'm asking for the audience's benefit. Who would you take there with that 17 points? Which way would you lean?
I'll go with South Florida because I do think they're physical. I do think they can slow down Miami. Miami looked really good against Notre Dame, but I'll go ahead and take the 17 points with the Bulls. But I think Miami wins by 2 touchdowns. Still too many points.
I hope my audience realizes the sacrifice I just made, because I have no interest in that. Danny, people are saying that college football is more wide open than at any point. There is no clear-cut number one. Do you agree with that? Is this the most wide open we've seen college football in quite some time?
Unequivocally, yes. Now, I think there's a caveat with there, because I still think there's those 5 or 6 programs at the top that have more talent. You think of Ohio State, you think of Georgia, you think of Penn State, even, Michigan lost, but Oklahoma. So I do think there's clearly like a cut above. But I think that group is probably 15, where it used to be 2 or 3. Like, as I kind of speak this out loud, I'm like, well, wait a second, how are we leaving out this team or that team? And I think the difference is there really wasn't a team that was the clear-cut number one. For the first time since 2016, 7 different teams received a number one vote in the preseason top 25. And then we've kind of see it play out already early this season. Like Bama losing already as a team that people thought could get to the playoffs. Florida State all of a sudden totally changes the perception of what people think they could be. I don't think it's crazy to think they're a college football playoff team. So I think one of the reasons, Jason, is because with COVID, with the transfer portal, with NIL, a lot of teams had a luxury of getting a veteran quarterback that had played a lot of football, that you knew like there was going to be a floor. And think of Oregon. Oregon's a good example. They went from Bo Nix, who had started for multiple years at Auburn. He comes in, they're really good. Then they go get Dylan Gabriel, started for 4 years. He comes in, holds it over. Ohio State, they transfer in Will Howard, who had won a Big 12 championship at Kansas State, but they knew what he could do on the field. So you kind of knew there was going to be a floor. You knew they had all that talent around him. It was going to work. This season, we had so many questions at quarterback at the top tier programs. I think that has sort of leveled out things because there's so much uncertainty at that one position. And I do think the portal and NIL have changed the game. I think it's why Nick Saban retired. He knew there was no more edge at Alabama to be able to have every bit of talent and to stack your roster with 2 deep, not 1 deep, but two deep on your roster with 4 and 5 stars. It's impossible to do this now because other programs can pay. And typically at a place like Alabama or Ohio State or Georgia, you could have that 5-star and he'd be content either with a bag under the table, but even more so, he'd be content sitting and waiting for a year. Now these guys want to go get paid and they can play right away at another university. The talent is starting to spread around the country, which I think is great for college football. And I still think this thing is wide open as it gets. The Heisman race, I think, is wide open. The national championship race is wide open. I think there's a bunch of different reasons for it, but I think it's going to be a phenomenal season.
All right, finally, we'll end on a lighter note. Not that we've done anything too heavy, but earlier this week or yesterday, I argued that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are the best quarterback running back combination I've ever seen in football. And then I started talking it out loud and I started thinking about it and I was like, well, hold on, man. Because I went with Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman as candidates. I went with Franco Harris and Terry Bradshaw. And then I was like, hold on, man, didn't Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner? And I've had to reconfigure because at one point, Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk went 1 and 2 in the MVP race. And Kurt Warner was on track to be like, he may end up one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. And Marshall Faulk is one of the 10 greatest running backs of all time. And so I've got Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk at number 1. I still think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry both have a shot at being top 10 all-time running back quarterback. Then I have Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith, then Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James. And Jim Kelly, you helped me get here on Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas. There was a year in the early 90s where they went 1 and 2, I believe, in the MVP race. So that's my top 5. What's yours?
So I love this exercise and I hate it at the same time because I was so torn on going back and forth with them. So similarly to yours, and I didn't know. So I was wondering where you were going with it because I didn't know if you were going to say they're overrated and that was somebody else's take, or that you thought Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry really were like the best running back quarterback duo of all time. So I went the same. I also 5. I had Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas. I mean, they had an offense named after the K-gun offense and the shotgun running no huddle. That was so much fun. I hated watching it as a Dolphins fan. Every year, my guy Dan Marino would go up there and get beat in the cold, and Jim Kelly would just slice and dice him, and Thurman Thomas would be carrying it. I had Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk at 4, the greatest show on turf. They were unstoppable, those two together. I think Kurt Warner still, if he had kind of started in the NFL, how many more Super Bowls potentially he could have won. I had Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith in 3, but I feel like I was a little bit prisoner to the results, like the 3 Super Bowls that they got, because I just don't like Troy Aikman. If you look at his numbers as a quarterback, and this is not a knock, but they're very pedestrian. And maybe it's a sign of the times of when they were playing and they weren't asking him to do too much and they had so many weapons in that offense, but the duo together were phenomenal. So I put him on there. And then I had John Elway and Terrell Davis as somebody who I came into I played with the Broncos a few years after they were already gone, but everybody knows what John Elway's capable of. If you go back and look at TD's numbers, I mean, he was close to 2,000 yards back-to-back seasons when they went back-to-back in that 97-98 Super Bowl. They were pretty unstoppable. And then I put Lamar and Derrick Henry there at the top. Like, I think if you asked, this is the way I tried to look at it. Like, if you were a defensive coordinator, if you polled defensive coordinators across time and you said, who would be the toughest to stop? I think it would be this tandem, because which side of it are you going to take away? Like, to make vulnerable. And I think the obvious answer is you try to take away Derrick Henry, but as Lamar's developed as a passer and a runner, because even if you stop him as a passer, he becomes a threat with the ball in his foot, in his hands. Like, it's so dynamic what they do. And I give the Baltimore Ravens credit, Jason, for the evolution of the quarterback position. And I'm going to try to go back and look at some of these numbers, because historically teams would have shied away from a quarterback that ran as much as Lamar Jackson in college, or even worse, they would have drafted him and tried to make him a pocket passer. But the Ravens said, you know what? We're going to let him play the way that he plays. And they built an offense around him, and it has changed the game. Look at all the quarterbacks that have taken since that are running quarterbacks. If you watch the college game now, running quarterbacks are all the rage. If you're looking at the NFL, teams are not afraid of getting their quarterbacks hurt. I think that would have been the fear before. And the Ravens threw out that fear and said, we want to use our best athlete. We're going to use them. And I think it's changed the quarterback position for possibly forever, unless they change the rules back where quarterbacks can get killed. But as they're protected as the way they are, I think this is the future of both college and NFL quarterbacks. They're going to start looking and playing an awful lot like Lamar Jackson.
I got to see Lamar and Derrick do it for another year or two before I can go to them at number 1. I do think they're headed that direction. Danny, I'm going to end on this note, and I want you to think about this as it relates to Troy Aikman. I'm a big Troy Aikman defender. Troy Aikman was going to be Tom Brady before Jerry Jones blew it up and brought Barry Switzer in. He was going to be a guy that won 2 or 3 Super Bowls early with pedestrian numbers, or just he was such a team player, he didn't care about his numbers. Troy Aikman was supposed to be a guy that won 5 or 6 Super Bowls, and then no one would question his pedestrian numbers. He had the talent to throw it all over the field if that's what wanted to do. But Jerry Jones screwed it up. They got rid of Jimmy Johnson, and Barry Switzer, did the best that he could. But Aikman, in my opinion, the original Tom Brady, the original team guy, do whatever it takes for the team, went out and supported Michael Irvin through all his garbage and BS. People love to slight Troy Aikman. He was a great quarterback, the original
I
Tom
think so,
Brady.
too. I don't want to slight Troy either. He's great, no doubt.
Yeah. Danny, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Great job. We'll see you again, hopefully, in 2 weeks. That's Danny Kanell. TJ Moe is just around the corner, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the black quarterback deal that Bill Rhoden and Anscape and ESPN and Shannon Sharp, Caleb Williams losing yesterday. Since this is a conversation no one really wants, but they're forcing it on us, and so we might as well talk about it. Black quarterbacks 5-11 opening weekend of the NFL season. TJ Moe and I will talk about that, but before we do that, I want to thank our friends at Kindred Harvest. They have a great tea product that I'm enjoying today. Fearless Family. Let me tell you something you need to know. Most of the tea you're drinking, it's trash, loaded with microplastics, heavy metals, and yeah, most of it's coming from China. Big Pharma doesn't care. The Chinese tea industry doesn't care. If it makes you sick, that's good for them. But Kindred Harvest is different. This is American. It's blended and packed right here in the United States. No microplastics, no toxins, third-party lab tested. Even the tea bags are 100% biodegradable, glue-free, ink-free. It's just clean, all-natural tea, from that morning cup that gets you moving to caffeine-free tea that helps you wind down at night. Even iced tea your kids will love. Kindred Harvest is a tea the way God intended, pure, honest, healthy. Choose American quality over foreign contamination. Choose Kindred Harvest. Go to kindredharvest.co. That's kindredharvest.co and use my promo code FEARLESS for 20% off. That's kindredharvest.co. Promo code FEARLESS. Kindred Harvest, cultivating goodness daily. TJ Moe, Hurts.
Every idol was destroyed. He took the crown and kept it.
Michael Jordan didn't have to run around and tell everybody, I'm the forever king, I'm this, I'm that. Other people did it for him. And I know this is Nike, and I know LeBron didn't design, but he certainly had some oversight and could have said, like, hey guys, what are we doing here? You know, let's put out a commercial of other people talking about me and talking about how great I am. But this whole deal of me anointing myself and celebrating myself, this is the biggest example, proof that he's not the GOAT.
As the NFL turns, starring quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, with special appearances from Commissioner Roger Goodell and coaches Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, and the Harbaughs. Brought to you by the global elites.
Love that open. Thank you, Justin, for that. As the NFL turns open, let's talk about what everybody in the legacy media wants to talk about. Black quarterbacks. There are 16 of them starting this year in the NFL. I say this without an ounce of sarcasm. I'm not trying to troll anybody. This isn't something that I want to talk about. It's this whole black quarterback discussion. When I was a little kid, it was a big deal that James Harris was the starting quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. This is in the early 1970s. James Harris being the Rams quarterback. Part of the reason I fell in love with the Rams, I loved their helmets. I loved Lawrence McCutcheon. I loved Jack Youngblood. I think I probably told the story on this show that one summer out of school, I wore my number 85 Jack Youngblood jersey for 17 straight days. It was filthy. It was awful. It sort of a reflection. I was kind of poor, but I'm just telling you, I love the Rams and I love Jack Youngblood and I wanted to play like Jack Youngblood. And part of the big reason they had this black quarterback, James Harris. But it's not the 1970s anymore. It's 2025. Black quarterbacks are in high school, they're in college, they're in Pee-wee, they've been in the NFL forever. This whole black quarterback, oh, the league is racist and no one wants a black quarterback. That thing ended 20 years ago, maybe longer. Warren Moon is probably the last guy that blew up the whole deal. And when Doug Williams won the Super Bowl, it's over. But the media won't let us move on. And so Anscape and everybody else loves to write these stories. And last week they wrote one about the 16 starting black quarterbacks. And they quoted Jalen Hurts in the article. This is Bill Rhoden, who's past his time as a sports writer and, has one grift, and that's talking about the hardships that these black quarterbacks face. And somehow Jalen Hurts is facing one of these hardships. He's not getting enough respect. So Hurts begins a new season. I'm quoting from his Anscape article. So Hurts begins a new season with a sense of mission. He will likely always play with a chip on his shoulder. Will play on behalf of those who never had the opportunity to play quarterback and the early black pioneers who were marginalized and underestimated. He is a part of an evolution that has led to 50% of starting quarterbacks being African Americans. This is not something he takes lightly. Indeed, it is the source of his inspiration. Quote from Jalen Hurts. It's definitely something that you can't take for granted, and you can't forget nor lose sight of the journey of how you got there. I know for me, it was not an easy journey getting to where I am and getting to this point. It's something that's always in the back of my mind when I go out there. And so I'm led to believe, we're supposed to be led to believe, that for white quarterbacks, they just roll out the red carpet and it's easy. Last night, it was so easy for J.J. McCarthy, and it was so hard for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was fighting all that anti-black racism from the 1960s and 70s when he was out there last night. 2 years ago, he was the #1 overall draft pick. I think that's a lot of respect when they draft you #1 overall. I think that's an organization that has a black team president, a black general manager, and a black head coach. They're not facing any resistance. They keep shoving this argument, this discussion down our throat to create a backlash to where people, or some people, well-intentioned, that would have no problem with Caleb Williams, no problem with any Jalen Hurts, any of these guys, but because Bill Rhoden, the rest of the media, and I'm going to let Jalen Hurts off the hook a little bit, because when these racial idolaters come and ask you this question, what's Jalen Hurts supposed to say? If he goes anywhere near the truth, I'm like, man, I ain't even thinking about that. They paying me like $50 million a year. I got life licked. This is what a joy this is. No one's rooting against me at $50 million a year. If he said that, and Bill Rhoden quoted him on that, then he'd face the backlash. How dare he say he's not a victim? He's a $50 million victim. Remember when Bill Rhoden put out the book, $40 Million Slaves, or whatever it was? I think it was called $40 Million Slaves. He needs to put out a book now called $50 Million a Year Victims. That's what they keep trying to turn all these black quarterbacks into, and it's off-putting to everybody else. And so since they want to do it, let's go ahead and keep the receipts and say black quarterbacks fell to 5-11 last night when Caleb Williams lost. I doubt that trend will continue because didn't Patrick Mahomes lost week 1? Some other really good quarterbacks lost. Lamar Jackson lost week 1. Michael Penix played a hell of a game and lost. Dak Prescott was off the chains and lost. But the winners were Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, and Jaden Daniels. 5-11. TJ Moe, welcome back to the show. Am I right that the media's constant centering, frontlining, shoving it down our face at this point is actually making well-intentioned people be like, well, I'm actually rooting against Lamar Jackson and these guys because I'm tired of this. Because if a black quarterback goes to the Super Bowl this year, there will be a story. This is the 13th black quarterback to make it to the Super Bowl. This is history. I don't want to read it. I don't want to hear it. I'm tired of it. Is it affecting you or anyone else in the same way?
Rooting against black quarterbacks. I will be the first to tell you. I am rooting against black quarterbacks. There are exceptions. I
hate
Pat
to put
Mahomes.
you in that position.
Yeah,
I hate to put you in that.
I'm happy to put
But
myself
it is
in
true.
whatever. Yeah. I love Pat Mahomes. I root for him. And that's personality driven. I actually think Lamar has lost enough that there's some texture in a story that I'm interested in. I kind of hope that he wins now. Plus, he retweeted Charlie Kirk this past week saying, tell somebody about Jesus. And so I'm on board with anybody who wants to tell people about Jesus. Let me tell you where some of this exhaustion comes from. Let me give you a history lesson of somebody who, probably your average white kid in America, who started first paying attention to the NFL in the mid-90s. That was me. I'm 34 years old. My first memories of the Rams, my dad had season tickets, and we started going to games when they came here in 1995. Okay? Do you know who the starting quarterback was in 1998? Tony Banks, black quarterback. That's the first quarterback I remember. A black quarterback. We're talking 30 years ago.
He was awful.
He was awful, but he was a second-round pick out of Michigan State, and it's, the Rams went 4-12 with him. I remember the whole thing. But that's what the average white guy in America remembers. Like, in 2005, there were 6 starting quarterbacks, and these are household names. You had Donovan McNabb, you had Cordell Stewart, you had Steve McNair, Michael Vick, Dante Culpepper. Like, we've never thought the Warren Moon narrative doesn't exist to 35-year-olds. We didn't live that world, and everybody's pretending we're still living in that world. So when you have somebody like me who's like, yeah, it's great, I just love the Rams, and Tony Banks is horrible, we'd rather have Kurt Warner, but like, yeah, go Rams in 1998 when Tony Banks is the quarterback. And now all I hear every day is, this is the first black quarterback to fart in this McDonald's on September 9th. I just don't care. That is the reality of what they're teaching us. And we're living that all while having Issa Rae, who gets to go out there and say, I'm rooting for everything black. This is the 2017 Oscars or whatever it was. I'm rooting for everything black. And alongside that, if white people win too much, it's Oscars so white, trending on a hashtag. And so white people are like, you can't celebrate anything white. In fact, if there are too many white anything, we have to put a stop to it. But we're rooting for everything black, and we have to celebrate the first black everything, or just black anything. Black businesses, black CEOs, black quarterbacks, black history, black pride, black dining. And it's like we're so overwhelmed with black everything. Guess what? We're rooting against it now, and it's the fault of the media.
What's so weird, and I'm 58, TJ's 34, but as I just unpacked for you, like James Harris, Shaq Harris was my introduction into football and being a Rams fan. And it was a big part of me becoming a football fan and a Rams fan. And now here I am some 45 years later, and I'm on the opposite side of that. And I'm someone that's like, I'm so worn out and so tired that it's like, no, let me go ahead and root for Josh Allen. and I like Lamar Jackson. I most of what Lamar Jackson does, I really respect the way he handled the criticism early in his career and just put his head down and went to work, the way he's proven everybody wrong about him as a quarterback. Respect it. He's done it his way. But I'm so tired of this narrative. I'm so tired of these people promoting this racism. They won't let it go. And so they are creating the backlash. They are creating the atmosphere of making people lean into tribalism. The media is doing this. Bill Rhoden is doing this. And he's doing it for his own little individual greed and survival. He has nothing else left to offer the sports writing world. He can't think of anything else provocative to say. Same deal goes on with Ryan Clark and many of these black athletes that are on TV. Same thing with Stephen A. Smith. Same thing with Jamel Hill. These guys don't understand sports on a level, or not clever enough on a level, to be interesting about anything other than saying, we're making black history and we're sticking it to the white man. And to me, it promotes an insecurity, and I'll land the plane here, TJ, and let you respond. But part of this is kind of the new what about Brett Favre? And so it's what they're really doing, what Bill Rhoden's doing and many of these people are doing is like, okay, you're showing all these black fatigue videos, but what about 16 black starting quarterbacks? That's their answer. And it's like, hey, the only thing we're achieving at is in the entertainment industry, and what about black quarterbacks? And it's sad. It speaks to an insecurity. It speaks to a lack of depth and a lack of seriousness that's troubling and disconcerting. Rooting for people making $40 and $50 and $60 million a year as if Dak Prescott wins the Super Bowl, your son's GPA is going to elevate. It's not going to elevate. You're an idiot. It's just not going to elevate if Dak Prescott wins a Super Bowl. Anyway, any response to any of that?
No, that's exactly right. I also want to point out, so I played quarterback in high school. Do you know who I wanted to be? Michael Vick. Like most somewhat athletic white kids were dying to be Michael Vick. People have pushed us to this narrative. I think you're exactly right. And instead of us talking, the media could be talking about, and some of what, look, there are some responsible guys. Chris Collinsworth was talking about the third version of Lamar Jackson. And again, I actually am rooting for Lamar Jackson. What I'm rooting against here, when I say I'm rooting against black quarterback, I'm rooting against a narrative. I'm rooting against having to get something shoved in my face that I didn't ask for the next day. But I actually like Lamar. I like that it's somebody who worked hard, went against the grain, decided he wasn't going the agent route. I do think it's weird that he has his mom as his agent, but he decided to do his own thing. We've actually seen him grow in a way. I was on this show 3 years ago saying, hey, he's got a great arm for a running back. And now I actually think he's a quarterback. Like, he looks good. I like this version. I'm rooting for that sort of thing. We could be, as the media, talking about the progress of these guys, and instead we're just talking about blackity black, 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 black. And it's just irritating. It's just nobody actually wants to hear it. You know, right now we're going through what I hope is more than just a slight reprieve with President Trump, where we're just not doing the DEI funding, so they're canceling all the, we didn't have the funds for doing the black-only dining experience in St. Louis this year, and we didn't have the funds, and it's like, okay, it's like, do whatever festival you want, but why is this national news? Why are we all talking about that? You brought this up at the end, and this is something that I think is part of the big irritation. I don't know any white people that think the success of other white people affects them in any way whatsoever. Not a single one. And there's a general standard in the white community, as if there were one, that you would say, yeah, of course you try to go succeed, and you should succeed, and we have a standard to get there, whatever that is. Why doesn't that exist in the black world today? Like, what is it that there's been so much black success over the years? We've had a black president in my lifetime now. Black people hold tons of political office. Black people are CEOs of big businesses, have started a ton of things, have dominated pro sports. Why is it some huge celebration that black people are doing what black people have been doing now for several decades? And we should celebrate it like the special needs kid next door finally said something smart. That is how we act. And that's part of the irritation. We're like, at some point we got to raise our standards here, guys.
Well, and at some point we have to focus on things that actually matter in a real way to the great mass of black people, because there's such a tiny percentage of human beings that will ever be born with the talent to play quarterback in the NFL at any level. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. And to play it at the level that Lamar plays it at, I mean, it just doesn't happen. Black, white, whatever, born with that level of talent and ability. And so we've seen, there was a time, not in my lifetime, but there was a time in the early 1900s, late 1800s, where white guys dominated boxing. And black guys eventually over time took over boxing. Did that take over of boxing? Did it elevate black kids into making better grades in school, graduating from college, marrying in families, sticking together as a family? No. There was a time when white guys dominated basketball. Black guys took it over. Did that elevate GPAs, SAT scores, the number of black families intact raising their kids? Did that defeat this matriarchal culture, black men taking over basketball? So explain to me how black men taking over the quarterback position, is going to elevate the great mass of black people. It's not. It's going to help Bill Rhoden write columns and collect a check from ESPN for writing the same thing over and over and over again. It will help Ryan Clark go viral when he makes irresponsible, inflammatory, racist statements. But in terms of elevating and impacting the great mass of black people, it will have no impact. And as I said yesterday, and we're going to talk about it again on Harmony today, as all these actors and celebrities and entertainers and athletes, as we got more rappers, we got more black entertainers that are billionaires, the brand and the reputation of black people has never been lower. Never. And you can have 17, 20, 32 black starting quarterbacks, and none of it is going to do anything to stop the damage being done to the reputation of black people. And so if you want to root for something, root for black men and black women or just black people to get in marriages, stay in marriages, raise their kids with respect for this country and other people. That will actually fix something. How many black quarterbacks start in the NFL in a league that couldn't care less whether you're green, blue, yellow, or brown? If you can throw that football or run the football, they will give you a check and a contract and let you make all that money for them. But we just got to, it's all this conversation is doing is contributing to the racial divide in this country, and it's infuriating, and we need to move on from it. TJ, final thought. I'm going to let you go.
Well, I love what you said at the end there. I love the way you're framing it of the brand thing. It's what Shamika said yesterday during Harmony, where we have an entire media and a public world now that wants to celebrate black excellence, but you can't talk about all the things happening on the subway in Charlotte. And the reality is, and this is frustrating, I can see why this would be frustrating to anybody, but the reality is Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson succeeding does not help black people that in any way whatsoever, doesn't. But the more stabbings you see on a train from a black dude, that actually hurts black people in a real way. That has to be the focus. Not the focus on see, look, black people are terrible, but the focus on fixing families, putting people in jail, actually, in my view, executing terrible criminals. This dude who stabbed this woman on the train should be publicly executed, okay? Dave Shannon had a good tweet yesterday. Evil needs to be afraid again. And it's been a very long time since evil was afraid in America. And so, we got people running free, doing whatever they want, and it is crazy. And so I understand the frustration that, this black fatigue narrative is going around, but it's not for nothing. These videos are not one-offs. People see it in their lives. People don't like it. It is not all black people. I'm sitting here talking to you, who's one of my best friends in the world. I love the black people that I know and are my good friends. I love Shamika. I would move in a neighborhood with you, Shamika, Dave Shannon, Delano, and all the rest tomorrow, and it would be the greatest neighborhood in the world. But I am telling you, there's a culture thing we shouldn't ignore, obviously, and white people shouldn't be afraid to say this is a rotten culture and we're promoting it and we should stop.
TJ, I got to let you go. I got to get to Steve Kim. There's some stuff in the sports media world that I want to address with him. TJ, thank you so much. Great job as always. We'll see you next time. Before we go, I want to tell you married men out there how you can perform better in the bedroom. Blue Chew. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. These erection-enhancing tablets help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer-lasting erections for sexual activities. It's not just about getting hard, it's about staying hard. Blue Chew is built for both. Guys, be ready when she needs it and get your first month of Blue Chew free. Great sex is just a few clicks away. Sign up at bluechew.com and consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made right here in the United States, and they're prepared and shipped directly to your door. The best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. This isn't just about performance. This is about legacy, your third legacy. When you lay it down with Blue Chew, you're not just making memories, you're shifting paradigms. Elevate your bedroom game and become a case study in evolution. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, your first month of Blue Chew is absolutely free. Just use the promo code FEARLESS at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's global mission to make sex better and the dominant drive of our modern society. Head to bluechew.com for details and safety info. Huge thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring this revolution and today's show. Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell. Next.
Guys, when it comes to developing, is acquiring as many valuable data points we can. Now, we know these things take time.
When you let incompetence and feminist agendas into your decision-making room, and then they're putting her out there in a press conference because her voice is valuable. She must be heard. I am woman. Hear Catherine roar. This is it. So they're doing the same gimmick within their offices as well. When the cameras are not there, we must hear from Catherine. Let's hear her perspective. And she rambles some gibberish and feminist gibberish. And everybody goes off into some fantasy world like what she has to say is important. Delusion is killing us. It's killing the Cleveland Browns.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you are 배불러 So fly
Steve Kim, Ryan Clark, and Peter Schrager have fist bumped and made up on NFL Live. Let's take a look here as they fist bump and open NFL Live yesterday. The feud is over. Play SOT 2.
The wave is here with Marcus Spears. Mina Kimes, happy birthday.
Yeah.
And your birthday
okay.
with us. Ryan Clark, Peter Schrager, Dan Orlovsky's in a car somewhere trying to get here.
There's the fist bump heard around the world. I don't know who the blonde lady is. Was that Lauren Rutledge? Did she host that show? I don't know. And then there was Mina Kimes. There's three women, and how many? One, carry three. I think three men talking NFL. Is that right? Yeah. Two men. 2 men and 3 women. Am I right about that? No, Peter Schrager's on there. There's 3 men and 2 women. There we see. My math is terrible.
Jeez.
Anyway, do you buy this fist bump heard around the world? Is it all good over at ESPN?
You know what this reminds me of? 2 things. And one of the first things of geopolitics I ever recognized as a kid, because it was such a lasting image. I remember watching, I think it was the national news with Peter Jennings or maybe Sam Donaldson. Remember the Camp David Accords? When Jimmy Carter had Menachem Begum and Anwar Sadat. Remember they did that tri-handshake? They're all like this.
Yes.
And I remember as a kid going, what's going on there? They look, and I think Anwar Sadat got shot in the head like a month later. I was like, that didn't end up good. Also, remember the gang truces where the Bloods and the Crips would like tie together the bandanas and they'd be like, yeah, were going to unite.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, they're doing drive-bys on each other. That's what it kind of reminded me of. It's like these uneasy truces. You're like, okay, we'll keep it cool for now, but in the back of the head, back of their mind, they would want to cap each other. That's what it reminds me of.
That.
Yeah, you agree?
Yeah, I do. Because I'm trying to. But when it's the games, when it's the Bloods and the Crips, both sides want to kill each other. I think Ryan Clark would still like to kill Peter Schrager. Peter Schrager may be indifferent more than wants to. But who? I'm not.
I think Schrager's in the back of his mind. If he was more athletic, if he would have actually played the game, I think he'd love to do an Oklahoma drill with them. But he knows he didn't play the game. That is the reality. He did not play the game. I love Peter, but I'm just saying every man has to know their limitations and capabilities here, Whitlock.
Okay, so there was a lot of momentum. When you had, I think, Kevin Demoff, the president of the Rams, he took a shot publicly at Ryan Clark. Obviously, I think Dave Portnoy may have taken a shot at Ryan Clark. Yeah, Dave Portnoy. Let's play this clip of Dave Portnoy taking a shot at Ryan Clark. Play shot 3.
But in this instance, we're watching the games on TV. We kind of know football. We see the same thing. So I'm not one of those guys that thinks that you guys are lower than me because I played and you didn't.
I always, and I was going to ask the Gruden and Olsen that question. That, of course, is a big debate. Ryan Clark went after Peter Schrager from NFL Network. They got in debate about a game. And Ryan Clark, who's one of the all-time jerks in the history of mankind, he is a race baiter. You can say that. I don't know if we can say this. He is. The only time he's in the news is when he's picking fights and then apologizing. But he yelled at Peter Schrager, basically saying, hey, shut up. You didn't play football. You can't talk. I've never understood that.
So, my point when I say Kevin Demoff, I think I've seen AB, Antonio Brown cracking jokes on Ryan Clark. We've certainly seen Portnoy. We just saw Portnoy. It was like everybody came together. We all in the same gang, and everybody came out kick, obviously, Bobby Burak, Clay Travis. Everybody's raining down on Ryan Clark. And ESPN, for now, is standing firm. But I do think Ryan Clark's next mistake and or apology will be his last. I think they've told Ryan Clark he's on the thinnest ice possible. He's one mistake away from ending his ESPN broadcasting career. Do you agree?
Okay, so you just dropped the West Coast All-Stars reference. I'll go here. So Ryan Clark's on a path to self-destruction. He's headed for self-destruction. That was that was the East Coast version. So here's what I think's going on. First of all, when it comes to AB, I know they're both Pittsburgh Steelers at the same. They were the Bloods and the Crips. There's no love lost between them. Also, so you're saying when Dave Portnoy questions your character, like you've really gone off the rail. There's a point to be made there. The other thing is, though, on a serious note, though, Jason, I really believe there's been an underlying thought with a lot of people. They didn't like Ryan Clark. They don't like what he stood for. They found him to be unconscionably racist in a lot of ways. I find him to be too much of a whiner. You can have any opinion you want. I get it. I give opinions that people don't like. But he whines too much. He really does. But I pointed this out to you before, Jason. I believe 4 or 5 years ago, you were not allowed to say this about Ryan Clark. We had to pretend that he was this great intellectual mind, maybe the athletic version of Harry Edwards, the 21st century version. We had to pretend that he had deep, meaningful thoughts. And you certainly couldn't say, wow, there's reverse racism. Now, again, we're in 2025. People are now just allowed to kind of feel and speak how they really view Ryan Clark. Now, I kind of disagree, Jason. I believe Ryan Clark has a perpetual safety net at ESPN and that he plays by a different set of rules. I actually think he has a certain amount of immunity.
You're telling me you think he can survive his next mistake?
If it's spaced out enough, yes. look, he's like one of those criminals that has like 18 prior convictions but just keeps getting off with no cash bail. He's that version of it. Yeah.
No, I'm going to make this is probably not a politically correct. I'm just thinking it out in real time. I'm saying this in real time. Look, man, who was the guy Daniel Penny choked out? That's who Ryan Clark
The Michael Jackson guy. The
Mike, yeah. And so, the next time, yes, the Michael, and we'll be seeing, we'll be seeing Ryan Clark, younger pictures in his earlier days when he was a harmless defensive back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those pictures will be populated all over. I can't believe Ryan Clark got choked out. And Bobby Burack is going to be Daniel Penny that chokes out Ryan Clark, and they're going to put Bobby Burack on trial for choking out Ryan Clark, and we'll pretend like, well, he never did any of those things. I'm telling you, the most reprehensible thing that Ryan Clark did that should have got him fired is the way he treated Sage Steele. I mean, there used to be some honor and some respect, and doing what he did, wouldn't go on air with Sage Steele because they disagree politically, treating her like a pariah. Sage Steele, there are no perfect human beings. And so I'm not arguing that Sage Steele is perfect, but holy cow, people love Sage Steele. She doesn't want to harm a flea. And this guy acted like he couldn't go on air with her because she wasn't the right kind of black person. That should have got him fired. I think he's on the thinnest ice. There's been what he did to RG3, he goes after this beloved Peter Schrager. People really like Peter Schrager. I think he's run out of, he's not going to, what's the guy's name in Charlotte that just killed a woman, DeCarlos Brown or something like that? I don't think, he's not going to get some, I know Dave Roberts carries a lot of clout around there. Stephen A. Smith carries a lot of clout, but I don't think they're going to give Ryan Clark another reprieve just because he's black.
Two things. I didn't think Bobby Burack woke up this morning with being compared to Daniel Penny on his bingo card. Next Tuesday. And the other thing is, and look, there's a bit of a joke, but it's serious.
How about Kyle Rittenhouse? How about I call him Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah, okay. You know what? Let's just stick with Daniel Penny. Let's stick with Daniel Penny. So the other one is, if Ryan Clark was asked to go on stage or share a segment with a guy with 5 double murders dealing drugs in a community, he wouldn't have a second thought. He would not have a second thought. Let's just be very honest about that.
All right, let's move on. I'll give you, and we'll get crushed for this because we're about to praise a white broadcaster after ripping Ryan Clark. But J.J. Watt had quite the television debut as a game broadcaster. He got to call the Pittsburgh New York Jets game, and I watched a lot of that game. And I wasn't paying close attention to who the broadcasters were, and I was listening to it, and then they went to a shot of, I think, Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt in the booth together, and I was like, oh, man, that's J.J. Watt. I thought he was a quarterback calling the game. It hadn't crossed my mind like this is a great defender. This is J.J. Watt, a defensive end. Sounded like a quarterback. He sounded very good. I want to play a couple of highlights. Play SOT number 5 and SOT number 6 back-to-back. These were kind of highlight moments for J.J. Watt calling that game.
This is not something you see very often, JJ. The starting quarterback for one team, now the starting quarterback for the other team, and it happened in both instances, and they're playing one another in the season opener.
Snip, snap, snip, snap.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're kind of flipping sides here, but everybody is really excited to see what both of these guys can do. You have the speed of Justin Fields, fake the handoff, naked all the way to the edge.
2 seconds later.
People are saying, Steve, J.J. Watt may be the replacement for Tony Romo if Tony Romo keeps putting in sloppy work.
Solid debut. And Jason, until I got the rundown this morning, I didn't even know it was J.J. Watt on the game. I thought he was solid, good delivery, clean. You can understand him, sounds comfortable on air. I'm not going to give him too much credit. When you call for a bootleg with Justin Fields, I mean, honest, that's like it's like saying if Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got the ball in the post. You know what? I think the sky hook might be coming here. And he did play defensive end. And what's the one thing that they look for in situations like that? The boot waggle action. But it's a promising start. But Jason, am I the only one? I still like Tony Romo. Why are we all jumping off the Romo bandwagon? What's that about? I think he's still pretty good.
I don't have a problem with Tony Romo. When I hear the kind of criticism around Tony Romo, I think CBS has a problem with Tony Romo. I think off air, I think Tony Romo's a diva, talks too much about playing golf or maybe going on the PGA Tour, or just kind of treats the job as if he's doing CBS a favor. You remember they went out there and paid him a lot of money. He set that new standard. And then I think CBS is frustrated and trying to put pressure on Tony Romo. That's why there's so much media discussion the last 2 or 3 years about, hey, I think Tony Romo has slipped. So I tend to agree with you, but I think the real source of Tony Romo's problems are his bosses at CBS.
So in other words, they don't like the fact he has options, but this is what I do like about Tony Romo. In terms of the network, he's the quarterback of America's team, and I get it. He wasn't Troy Aikman in the postseason, but there's a profile there going all the way back to Dandy Don Meredith, right? Second of all, I think he's a very personable guy. He's also self-deprecating. He's not afraid to take some jabs at himself. And I believe his partner is Jim Nantz, right? Or it was for a while.
Yeah.
He has good chemistry. Yeah, but whoever he's with, it sounds like a conversation. And Jason, I'm not one of these people that minds him saying, hey, I think a blitz is coming here. I actually want to learn something. And he teaches the game, in my view, pretty well on a game-to-game basis.
Let me give you a peek behind the curtain. I'm hoping I'm going to unpack this without anybody being able to figure out who I'm talking about. And it's commonplace. Okay. It is commonplace for the play-by-play guy to get frustrated by athletes in the booth that are kind of winging it with their personalities. The great play-by-play people put in a lot of work, a lot of work. And then they sometimes get paired with an athlete that just thinks, hey, man, my personality and what I know from playing football is enough. And it bothers the play-by-play guy enough that he'll complain behind the scenes. And I've seen it where the color commentator puts in a lot of work and the play-by-play guy wings it. And so I don't know about the dynamics between Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, but I do know, like, Jim Nantz just stepped away from college basketball, felt like at his age he was overexposed and needed to do less so he could do more. I think he takes this NFL thing very, very seriously, and perhaps Jim Nantz loves Tony Romo's potential, loves his talent, but maybe doesn't respect his work ethic. No one's told me that. That's 1,000% speculation on my part.
Yeah, I mean, it is a partnership. And who is considered the greatest team ever? Maybe for guys our age, it's Summerall and Madden, right? And they played each other. It was like peanut butter and jelly. And you knew that Summerall understood less is more. I'm just a point guard and get out of the way with this raging bull coming through, right? But you knew Madden studied the game. When he's on that cruiser taking that bus, he's probably watching 10 hours of game tape, the All-22. So you knew with all that shtick, there was real football. For all the catchphrases, like you were going to learn fundamentally sound football, right? So they were perfect. And then Summerall would wrap it up next on 60 Minutes. You're like, oh, this is perfect. You're right. It is a partnership. And sometimes in terms of the words that are spoken, it could be 50-50. And other times it can be 80-20. It's a very delicate balance. But I'll be honest with you, I've never come away from a Romo game saying, God, that was bad. Honestly, I generally enjoy Romo's broadcast, regardless.
I'm right there with you. And so this isn't me disagreeing at all. I think other people would argue is, hey, man, there is better out here. And Romo started out so hot. When he first showed up, he started out so hot that he established a brand, and people are like, man, you're not really listening to to what's actually going on. I think there are some people out there who are like, man, Troy Aikman brings some real insight. Yeah. And he and Joe Buck, that partnership, that's the peak. And if you're a Jim Nantz, and again, I have not talked to Jim Nantz. I haven't heard anybody gossiping about what Jim Nantz thinks. But Jim Nantz thinks of himself as, hey man, I'm the best broadcaster going.
Standard.
And if Tony Romo were carrying his weight, we would be the best NFL team going. But I think Jim Nantz thinks Aikman and Buck are, and that Greg Olsen and Kevin Burkhardt, when it was Greg Olsen, were on the rise and coming. And so, anyway, J.J. Watt, someone to keep an eye on. I think he's got a great work ethic. And for a defensive player, he sounds like an offensive player, a quarterback in the booth. Steve, last thing, this is kind of near and dear to my heart. Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon got a 3-year extension for Pardon the Interruption. And they've, for 20-some-odd years, have been the highest rated show at ESPN. And this again, I go to where these actual media companies control the media. ESPN tells Andrew Marchand and all these other people that allegedly cover the media, they tell them what to focus on. And that's why there's so much conversation about Stephen A. Smith and First Take, because you would be led to believe that Stephen A. and First Take were a more bigger in the ratings than Pardon the Interruption and Kornheiser and Wilbon. You never, over the course of 20 years, ESPN almost never promoted Pardon the Interruption, and they certainly don't now. But Kornheiser and Wilbon have been holding down for 20-plus years, 3-year extension. I think at the end of it, Tony may be 80 years old, and Mike in his mid-70s, late 70s by then. It's an amazing run. It's amazing how little support they've actually gotten from ESPN as opposed to McAfee, Stephen A. Smith for years, and First Take. But they're getting 3 more years. I think ESPN would have loved to have moved on from them, but they can't. The results speak for themselves. Pardon the Interruption isn't what it used to be, but it's still probably the best thing on ESPN.
You know what they are? They are the grilled cheese sandwich of ESPN. Solid, reliable, dependable. You forget about it, but you never get sick of it, and it's still good years later, and you're glad it's always on the menu. And at this point, good for them. They should be able to call quits when they want to on their terms. And at this point, I'm actually surprised that there was an announcement that ESPN is moving Vibe Check into that time slot. By the way, I got a bone to pick with you, Whitlock. Before we went on vacation, the summer hiatus, I made it a point to watch Vibe Check because you said, Steve, you got to watch this. We're going to talk about it. I said, oh, my God. I don't know if I get paid enough for this, but I'm going to do it. I actually set DVR recordings for Vibe Check, and I watched it for a couple weeks. So I'm thinking, okay, I did my homework. I read Moby Dick. I read War and Peace. I didn't even get to do a book report on it. The sacrifices that I make, Whitlock, I don't ever want you to forget that.
Well, hold for 1 second. I'm slightly interested. I'm slightly interested. Is it still on the air, and is it any good?
As soon as we came back on the air in the first couple of shows, we didn't talk about it. I took that off my record so fast. It's like it never existed. Here's what I do remember. The version with the main 3 was terrible. With that name I can't pronounce, the other one, and the Duncan. Yeah, and Duncan.
Chimney, L. Duncan, and Andrea Carter, who
yes,
I just
it was unbearable.
It
was unconscionably bad. It was just a series of inside jokes. And you're like, inside jokes are okay if they're actually funny. There's nothing more unfunny than people trying to be funny who aren't funny. They were the unfunniest of the unfunniest I've ever seen. Here's the thing that I found interesting. When they brought in some of the other people, like I believe Jen Latta and Laura Rutledge, guess what, Jason? I actually didn't think it was bad. Just leave it at that. Thought it was okay, actually.
Really?
Yes. The substitutes were better than the regulars. It wasn't nearly as obnoxious. All these skits they're trying to do and them trying to be cool. Let's just do a show. And with the other ladies, they talked about other sports. It wasn't so WNBA centric, so maybe I enjoyed that more, okay? But I'm not going to lie to you. I actually believe that, and look, I didn't like either version that much. The substitute version, I believe, was markedly more watchable for me. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you've given me an opportunity to once again express how much I enjoy Andrea Carter, and so I will say that, and I would love to be a part. It's not really. I want to convert her. I would love to get her on a more righteous path. I just got to be honest and say that that's a beautiful young woman.
Righteous path. Okay, that's the way you're putting it. Righteous path. Okay. Okay, Whitlock.
All right, I've gotten myself in enough trouble, and I'm sure Andrea Carter's livid right now that I said that. But anyway, I did. Thank you, Steve. Great job as always. Hey, before you guys get out of here and join me on the Harmony channel, I need you to go to fearlessmission.com. That's fearlessmission.com. Become a Blaze TV subscriber. You can do it for just $8 a month. You can get $20 off right now. It's important. If you love me, if you support this show, if you support all the things we're doing, I need you supporting us by becoming a subscriber. fearlessmission.com. Also go there and pick up your Pay Fans Respect t-shirt. Did we show the picture from yesterday? I think, yeah, we showed the picture from yesterday of Joel. By the way, also I got pictures from John and Ed that sent me pictures. They were at the top of like 14,000 feet elevation, or how many ever feet, I don't know what they're at 14,000 something at Mount Yale. And they were wearing the Fearless Prayer t-shirts. Do I have that here in my, we'll show that tomorrow. But thank you, John and Ed. Thank you guys for watching today. I'm going to be on Harmony in, what time? Oh, yeah, 11:45. Give me 15 minutes. I'm going to be on the Harmony channel talking about this Charlotte train massacre again. Just me. There's some things that I didn't unpack yesterday that I want to further unpack. I want to show you a clip from Will Kane, a segment he did. You know what? I'm just going to tease that right now. Let's play the Will Kane SOT that I'm going to be talking about on the Harmony channel at 11:45. Play Will Kane. No,
now, why would that be? Why would one story demand 100 articles and another story 0 articles? And it's because the media is more interested in the all capitals story, the narrative, than the facts or the truth. Take a look at the difference here. I want to show you the actual truth when it comes to crime. The story is about race. Race. Take a look at the black on white crimes, 385,000 in 2023. The white on black crimes, just under 118,000. You see the comparative numerical difference. But now, here's what the media actually does. They did what our camera operator just began to do a moment ago. I'm going to step out of the way. I'm going to show you literally what the media does with the camera. They zoom in on this number. This number, devoid of context.
This conversation isn't going anywhere. It's going mainstream. The Charlotte train massacre, black on white crime, there's an inevitable backlash to the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to get stronger. It's now on Fox News. It's now on Will Kane's show. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to discuss it on the Harmony channel. We'll be there at 11:45 Central Time. That's 16 minutes from right now. I'll be there unpacking this and a bit more. Thank you guys for watching Fearless. We'll play some tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a stand freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want